Hi everyone, so we're going to start our next unit on the nervous system. So again, we're going to see a lot of vocabulary here, so please try to do the best you can. Take your time going through all of this, pause the video if need be. So let's start here. So we have a couple functions that we're going to see. So some of the functions of our nervous system is going to be gathering information from both inside and outside of our body. This is going to be a sensory function. Transmitting information to processing areas of our brain and spine. Processing the information in the brain and the spine. This is going to be an integration function. And then sending the information from the muscles, sending the information to the muscles, glands, and organs so they can respond appropriately, which is a motor function. But overall, what we're going to see with the nervous system is that it is the control center. So its main function is, yes, all of those different things, but it's going to control and coordinate all essential functions of the body, including other body systems, and allowing the body to maintain our state of homeostasis. So overall, our nervous system is going to control everything that we've talked about with those feedback loops, blood calcium, temperature, all of that to keep homeostasis within the body. So this is our main definition, though those other four were kind of all the different things specifically that it does. But I want you guys to really highlight that this is the control center of your body. There's a couple of different divisions of our nervous system as well. So our first two is going to be our main divisions, which is our central nervous system, which is made up of our brain and spinal cord, and then our peripheral nervous system, which is going to be just the nerves, both cranial and spinal nerves. And then there's some divisions of our peripheral nervous system. So our somatic is going to be our voluntary. So this is going to relay info to and from skin and skeletal muscles. And then our autonomic nervous system is our involuntary, and it's going to relay information to our internal organs. And within the autonomic system, we're going to see another two divisions, our sympathetic and our parasympathetic. So sympathetic is going to control under stress, and parasympathetic is going to control with rest. So we can see those divisions here. Our nervous system right here with our brain and spinal cord, our central nervous system. Our peripheral nervous system is all the nerves that are going to come from our brain and spinal cord. These two divisions, our voluntary or our somatic, is going to be skin and skeletal muscles, autonomic, involuntary for internal organs. Again, another break off is our sympathetic, which is stress, and parasympathetic is when we are at rest. So let's take a look at some of our basic cells. So we know that our nervous tissue is made up of neurons. So our basic neuron function is our basic functional cell, and it's going to transmit impulses. And we know we're going to see that our impulses always move from our dendrite to our cell body to our axon. So if we look here, our dendrites are these little branches that come off of our cell body, which is this entire area here. This is our cell body. And then our axon is this long area right here that comes off of our neuron. So we're going to move from dendrites to cell body to axon. So let's define these parts. So the three main parts are the ones I just mentioned. So our dendrites are going to receive stimulus and carry these impulses toward the cell body. So we're receiving the stimulus here. Our cell body is going to have all of the nucleus and organelles within that cell. And then our axon is a fiber that carries impulses away from the cell body. So our dendrite take in the impulse, cell body is going to process that information, and then our axon is going to send that impulse out of the cell body to wherever it needs to go. Some more important details for our neuron. We're also going to see Schwann cells, which produce myelin or fat layers in the peripheral nervous system. We're also going to see something called a myelin sheath. which is this dense fat layer, which is going to insulate our axon. And then our nodes of Ranvier is going to be gaps in the myelin sheath. So I'm going to go back to that picture that we just saw, and we can see here, let's add some more things to this picture. So here are our Schwann cells right around. Our myelin sheath is also in the similar area as our Schwann cells, but in between each of these little bundles right here, in between is going to be that nodes of Ranvier. So those are just a couple more terms to add to your knowledge here. There's also 3 types of neurons that we're going to see. So we can see sensory neurons. These are going to bring messages to the central nervous system. Motor neurons carry messages from the nervous system, so away. And then our interneurons are kind of that in between our sensory and our nervous. So if we take a look here, we can see some examples of these. So our motor neuron is also sometimes called a multipolar. So let's add that to our notes here, multipolar neuron. Our sensory neuron is a unipolar. And then our interneuron is what we call a multipolar. Oops, sorry. Oh no, that's correct, our multipolar. So our motor neuron and our interneuron have similar type structures that they have both our dendrites and our axons on the ends of those. But for our sensory neuron, we're going to see it's unipolar because we only see one division coming out of our cell body. So it's a unipolar. Though we see a receptor cell, and we do see those as well. Multipolar because we see that our dendrites are coming from our cell body here, and again, more dendrites and axons coming from our cell body, which makes it multipolar. So impulses, a stimulus is going to change the environment, is a change in the environment with enough strength to initiate a response. So it has to be strong enough to get some response from it to be considered a stimulus. Excitability is the ability of our neuron to respond to a stimulus and convert it into a nerve impulse. And we see this really important rule, which is why I put it in red, called the all or nothing rule. So it's either the stimulus is strong enough or nothing happens. So if the stimulus is not strong enough to start that impulse, we're not going to have any reaction to it. Hence the all or nothing principle for nerve reactions here. A synapse, this should be a pretty familiar word. We saw one with our muscular contractions. So a synapse is a small gap or space between the axon of one neuron and the dendrites of another. And another important thing is to remember that these are not actually touching in the synapse. There's a space there, which is why it's important. So this junction between these two neurons use what we call neurotransmitters, which should be another familiar idea, to start our impulses in the second neuron or effector, which can be our muscles or our glands, which we saw again in our neuromuscular junction. And it ensures that there's only one-way transmission. So we're only going to get that synapse between our axon to our dendrites. We're not going to see it the other way around. And just to refresh what neurotransmitters are, these are chemicals in a junction which allow impulses to be started in our second receiver. So either a second neuron or a muscle or a gland is going to be that receiver. But here's a great picture here. Our synapse here is our nice gap. We see that these two are not touching each other. So here's our axon and here's our receptor. Nothing is touching, but we see that we have transmitter receptors, which are going to take in our neurotransmitters and send that signal to the next neuron, to the next muscle, anything like that to send that signal along. Last thing we're going to talk about today is our reflex arc, and this happens in 4 steps. So when I say reflex arc, I'm talking about just natural reflexes within our body. So the first one is our receptor, so it reacts to a stimulus. An afferent pathway is our sensory neuron. that's going to conduct impulses to the central nervous system. Our interneuron is going to consist of one or more synapses in the central nervous system. So now we are inside the central nervous system. Our efferent pathway is going to see a motor neuron, and this is going to conduct a pulse away from the central nervous system. And then our last one is our effector. This is a muscle fiber or a gland that is going to respond by contracting or secreting some sort of product. So let's take a look. So here, let's follow our reflex arc here. We have our response. So here we see something happening. We're tapping a hammer. Our sensory neurons are going to come out, bring that information to our interneurons here. That's going to come out our efferent pathway to our motor neurons, which is going to have an effector take place, which is going to be here pulling these two muscles, which is going to kick your leg out. One more term I'm going to define here is spinal reflexes. So these are initiated and completed all at the spinal cord level. So us hitting our knee with a hammer, that would be a spinal cord reflex or a spinal reflex. Because we don't need any involvement from our higher brain centers. We can do all that information processing within our spinal cord. Okay, so if we have any questions, please reach out and ask. Okay.